Ancient ties, modern discord, the historical roots. The Israel-Palestine conflict is deeply rooted with a long history that spans thousands of years. The region, sacred to Jews, Christians, and Muslims, has been a site of contention for centuries. Each group has deep historical and spiritual connections to the land, making it a focal point of religious and cultural identity. Both Palestinians and Israelis claim the same land as their homeland, leading to a tragic conflict that has persisted through generations. This dual claim has fueled a cycle of violence, displacement, and political strife. For Jews, the land holds biblical significance as the ancient land of Israel, a promise from God and a central part of their heritage. This connection is not just historical but also deeply spiritual, influencing their cultural and national identity. The Zionist movement emerged in the late 19th century, advocating for a Jewish state as a refuge from persecution and a return to their ancestral homeland. This movement gained momentum, especially in the wake of the Holocaust, leading to increased Jewish immigration. Palestinians, predominantly Arab and Muslim, have resided in the region for generations. Their connection to the land is equally profound, rooted in centuries of history, culture, and daily life. They view the land as their ancestral home, integral to their identity and existence. The influx of Jewish immigrants during the British Mandate period led to tensions and displacement. As Jewish settlements expanded, many Palestinians were forced from their homes, creating a legacy of bitterness and conflict that continues to this day. Understanding these historical roots is essential to grasping the complexities of the conflict. Only by acknowledging the deep-seated historical and emotional ties both groups have to the land can we begin to comprehend the ongoing struggle and search for a peaceful resolution. A century of clashes, wars, and failed negotiations. The history of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is marked by a series of wars and failed negotiations that have left deep scars on both sides. The 20th century saw wars and failed negotiations that worsened the conflict. Each attempt at peace seemed to be met with new challenges, further complicating the path to resolution. The 1948 Arab-Israeli War resulted in the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians known as the Nakba. This mass exodus created a refugee crisis that persists to this day, with generations of Palestinians living in camps across the Middle East. Subsequent conflicts, including the Six-Day War in 1967 and the Yom Kippur War in 1973, entrenched divisions. These wars not only redrew borders, but also deepened the animosity and mistrust between Israelis and Palestinians. Israel's victory in the Six-Day War led to its occupation of the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and East Jerusalem. This occupation has been a central issue in the conflict, with both sides claiming historical and religious ties to the land. Numerous peace negotiations have yielded limited success. Despite the efforts of international mediators and leaders from both sides, a lasting peace agreement has remained elusive. The Oslo Accords in the 1990s offered hope but faltered due to continued violence and settlement expansion. The accords were seen as a significant step towards peace, but the optimism was short-lived as both sides failed to fully implement the agreements. The failure of these negotiations perpetuated a cycle of mistrust and animosity. Each breakdown in talks has led to renewed violence, making it even harder to return to the negotiating table. The legacy of these wars and failed negotiations continues to shape the conflict. The enduring impact of these events is felt in the daily lives of Israelis and Palestinians, influencing their politics, society, and future aspirations. The path to peace remains fraught with challenges, but understanding this history is crucial for any hope of resolution. Gaza open-air prison and flashpoint. The Gaza Strip, controlled by Hamas since 2007, faces an Israeli blockade. This blockade has resulted in widespread poverty, unemployment, and limited access to necessities. For Palestinians, Gaza represents their struggle for self-determination. Hamas uses its control over Gaza to launch rocket attacks into Israel. Israel justifies the blockade and military operations as necessary for security. The cycle of violence in Gaza highlights the humanitarian toll of the conflict. The situation in Gaza demands international attention and a commitment to finding a solution. The Six-Day War, shifting sands of power. The 1967 Six-Day War marked a turning point, altering the geopolitical landscape. Israel captured the West Bank, Gaza Strip, East Jerusalem, Sinai Peninsula, and Golan Heights. This victory had profound consequences, including the displacement of Palestinians. Israel's control over these territories laid the groundwork for its settlement enterprise. The war solidified Israel's military dominance but brought new challenges. The Six-Day War had a lasting impact, shaping the political realities of the conflict. The legacy of this war continues to influence the region. Oslo Accords, a glimmer of hope, quickly extinguished. The Oslo Accords in the 1990s aimed to establish a framework for a two-state solution, bringing together leaders from both sides in a historic moment of diplomacy. The accords led to the mutual recognition of Israel and the Palestine Liberation Organization, a significant step towards peace that many believed would end decades of conflict. However, the Oslo Accords ultimately failed due to continued violence and settlement expansion. The optimism of the early 90s was overshadowed by the harsh realities on the ground. The assassination of Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin in 1995 dealt a further blow to hopes for peace. Rabin, a key architect of the Accords, was seen as a symbol of the peace process. The failure of the Oslo Accords led to renewed violence and deepening divisions. The promise of peace gave way to a cycle of retaliation and mistrust. The legacy of this failed peace process continues to haunt the region. The barriers and fences in the Gaza Strip stand as stark reminders of the divisions that persist to this day, a testament to the challenges that remain unresolved. The Second Intifada, erupting into violence. The Second Intifada, which erupted in 2000, marked a period of escalating violence. Triggered by Ariel Sharon's visit to the Temple Mount, it saw Palestinian suicide bombings and Israeli military operations. The construction of the separation barrier by Israel further restricted Palestinian movement. The Second Intifada had a devastating impact, leaving behind a legacy of trauma and animosity. The scars of this period continue to shape the political landscape. Settlements and walls. Obstacles to peace. Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank remain a major obstacle to peace. These settlements are seen by Palestinians as a violation of their rights. The construction of the separation barrier by Israel has further exacerbated tensions. The barrier restricts Palestinian movement and impacts their livelihoods. The expansion of settlements and the barrier have fragmented the West Bank. These actions are widely condemned by the international community. The role of Hamas militancy and governance. Hamas, a Palestinian Islamist organization, plays a complex role in the conflict. Founded in 1987, Hamas combines militant activities with social service provision in Gaza. Hamas's charter calls for the destruction of Israel and armed resistance. The organization has carried out numerous attacks against Israeli civilians. While its militant activities are condemned, its social services provide for Gaza's population. Hamas's presence complicates the search for peace. International community, a divided stage. The international community plays a crucial role in the conflict. However, it remains deeply divided on key issues. The United Nations has passed numerous resolutions condemning Israeli occupation. The United States, a staunch ally of Israel, has often been criticized for its perceived bias. The Arab world has become increasingly fragmented, complicating efforts to support Palestinian rights. The humanitarian crisis, a collective failure. The conflict has created a protracted humanitarian crisis, particularly in Gaza. The blockade imposed by Israel has crippled the Gazan economy. Repeated rounds of conflict have resulted in widespread destruction of infrastructure. The international community has failed to address the root causes of the crisis. Addressing this crisis requires a multifaceted approach, including lifting the blockade and achieving a political solution. A path forward. Elusive peace in a complex reality. The path to peace remains elusive, hampered by decades of mistrust and violence. A two-state solution, based on the 1967 borders, remains the most viable option. This solution requires significant compromises from both sides. Achieving peace requires leadership, political will, and a genuine commitment. The international community has a crucial role in facilitating dialogue and holding parties accountable. Breaking the cycle of violence is a moral obligation to future generations.